Hey everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to my channel. My name is Micah. Today we are going to be doing the bronzer collection tag. I did the blush version of this last month and I did the eyeshadow palette version of this a few months ago, so I'll make sure to link those in the description box if you would like to know. And people were asking, can you also please do this for other categories? So that's why we're doing bronzers today. Did I do highlighters as well? I'm not sure if I did. But I thought we could have a bit of fun and talk about bronzers. Now I did just show you my entire bronzer slash contour collection, including like creams and face palettes and all that. So I'll link that in the eye above in case you're interested. But today I'm just going to be answering some prompts and talk to you about bronzers and everything that I have. I have quite a few, so I definitely wasn't like stressed for choice when it came to some of these prompts. I definitely was able to find something for everything. So let's start with the first prompt, which would be my newest bronzer. My newest bronzer is actually two. It's these two. I got these around the same time in my brain, but I think there was a few weeks apart, and I got the Charlotte Tilbury, what's this called, airbrush bronzer in the shade Fair, and I was not sure what it said there. I haven't used this much on my face yet. I've only used it once or twice, and I'm sort of keeping this around. I had been trying so many cheek products that I'm actually a little like cheek product tried out for the moment. So I decided not to put any new products in my current Shop My Stash, because I think also this month and probably also still next month, I think I just want to use some old favorites. At least like now for like a month or two or three. I just want to get some more use out of products that I know I love. So this I'm going to savor. It's also quite fair. I have to say it's very light. So I think it's best with, I think it is best to wait with using this more when it's like February, March, because then I get super pale. As the winter progresses, I get paler and paler towards spring. So I think that will be a good one to then try. And then the other one I tried, and I already did put this in a Shop My Stash, so I just wanted to update you on that as well. This is the Nabla Skin Glazing Bronzer in the shade Ombre. This is the lightest shade that they do, and I've already worn down that emblem that it comes with. So yeah, this is one I definitely want to go back to, because this was absolutely lovely when I tried it. It's a gel to powder kind of texture, and it goes on so smoothly. It warms up the skin enough without it looking too much. The next prompt is my oldest bronzer, and I think it's this one. This is the Solar Powder Bronzer by Soap & Glory. And this is no longer for sale, unfortunately, but this is one of my favorite bronzers from the drugstore, and I reach for this all the time. I'm not sure if you can see, it never really shows up very well, but this has a huge dent on one side. It came with a little like logo embossed in the middle and a little bit like pink overspray that I lost very, very quickly, but especially that lighter shade that it has. I tend to focus my brush on that and then just take a little bit of the darker shade in. And I bought this years ago when I was in London off of the recommendation of Lily Pebbles. So she is a British YouTuber. She now does more like lifestyle-y kind of things, but she definitely started out as a beauty blogger. So I think this must have been like 6-7 years ago. And she was like, yeah, this is a great one. And I love this one in the springtime as well. It was one of the very first bronzers that I owned that I loved, that I knew I could use. Before this, I always found it very difficult to find good bronzers. I've tried stuff like NARS Laguna, which was like the cult favorite at the time, and it was just very muddy on me. But this was the first one I tried where I was like, ooh, yes, I love it. The next prompt is my most expensive bronzer, and I thought it was going to be the Charlotte Tilbury one, because that one retails for 50 euros. But it's not, because I have this. This is the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Bronzer in Nude Bronze Light, and this retails for a whopping 55 euros. And I don't use it very often. I have to say, I definitely think that this is one of those products where this winter I just need to make a point of starting to use it and really sort of teach myself the difference between this and another Hourglass powder that I use as a bronzer in the summertime. So my favorite Hourglass bronzer is a ambient lighting powder in the shade Radiant Light. It's the darkest shade they do, and on my fair skin, it's a bronzer. I bought that years ago. I went back to it over the summertime together with another like actual bronzer that I will be mentioning also today in the tag that I sort of use in conjunction, and I fell completely head over heels in love again with that combo. And because I already owned that, because I bought that at the time because Hourglass didn't have any bronzers yet. But they came out with them a little bit later, and then I decided to get it because I love that powder so much. But then I don't really use this, so I definitely need to make a point of starting to use this more. It is a more like pink tone bronzer, so it could be very pretty again in the winter time. So this is definitely something that I need to pull in perhaps next month. The next prompt would be everyday bronzer. Can you guess what it will be? This. If there is one bronzer that I own that I feel I can use year-round, every day, never looks crazy, never looks too muddy, goes with everything, it's the Balm Take Home the Bronze bronzer in the shade Oliver. Now these seem to have been discontinued, and I'm absolutely gutted because I was really hoping to pan this and then be able to buy a backup. I have a huge dent in this because of how much I've used it. This is just my go-to bronzer. If I don't know what to wear, I would go for this. It's a more yellow tone bronzer, and you will see that a couple of my true favorite bronzers have that more yellow undertone. Nothing too orange or red, because on my fair complexion, it just doesn't look really good. However, with this, I always feel it just always works. It always works, which is why this one is definitely my everyday pick. So the next prompt I had to change a little bit because this tag started as an eyeshadow palette tag and then it became a blush tag, and I'm sort of using the prompts from the blush tag to do the tag today. But one of the prompts was like most colorful product, and of course with bronzer it doesn't really get very colorful, so I figured I could flip this one a little bit and change it into like a colored bronzer that is a bit out of the norm for me. So I just mentioned with the Balm bronzer that I really love yellow, sort of neutrally undertoned bronzers. That's my go-to. Something that's not a go-to for me is red tone bronzers. The only one I have that I like is the Urban Decay Beach bronzer in the shade Sunkissed. I can only use this in the summertime. It's way too dark for me for right now. Look at how pale I'm getting. Oh, it's that time of the year again where I'm just turning into Snow White. And then this doesn't really work on me. It's not the right undertone, but when I get a little bit more color to my skin in the summertime, then this works really lovely. This looks very intense, very deep, but it's actually one that sheers out really lovely, but it has that reddish pink undertone that in the summertime gives you, well, this is probably why it's called the beach bronzer. Looks like you've spent a day out on the beach. It really gives you this really nice sun-kissed look, and that's why I like it. So for me, this is a little bit out of the way, out of my usual preference, you could say. But yeah, I do really like this bronzer, and I'm so happy that I decided to keep it around for my full face of Urban Decay, and then I was like, I can't declutter this for the life of me because it looks too pretty. Best memory, and I was gonna mention the Soap & Glory bronzer here again, and then I was like, no, I have something in my makeup memory box. What's in a name? Yes, I have a little drawer where I keep makeup that I don't want to declutter. As in, I don't want to get rid of it, but it's no longer in my main collection because it's either A, very pretty, or because it's just, you know, memories, all the memories. And one of the products in that is the Essence Lights of Orient bronzer in the shade Sunkissed Beauty. And the reason why this is most memorable is because this was a limited edition by Essence. It was one of the first limited editions by Essence that I really blogged about back in the day. I think this came out in like 2014 or 15. It came with a bunch of products. It also came with like, I bought the lipstick and the eyeshadow palette, which is also in that box. Not the lipstick, by the way. That's been thrown away. But I never really wanted to use this very often because it has a lovely pattern. So I never really used this enough. But it was, up until just recently, this was the only Essence bronzer that had ever come out that worked on me. Every Essence bronzer that I tried since this had been way too orange. Essence bronzers are just very orange, and if you have a cool to neutral undertone, they just don't really work. But for their new winter collection, they came out with the Hello Good Stuff line, and they are currently doing the Matte and Glow bronzer in Cocoa Cool. And this works. So I now no longer have to use this whenever I want to do a full face of Essence, because for years, whenever I wanted to do a full face of Essence, this was the only bronzer I had that I could use. So yeah, this is memories because it was like one of the first limited edition collections by Essence that I wrote a blog about, but also because it was the only bronzer by Essence for a long time that I could even use. Worth the hype. Can you guess? Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. I have mine in the shade Bronzer because I had heard that the two shades that were out originally, which is when I bought mine, were just really similar. I was like, I can go with the deepest one because then it probably works for me year round and not only in the winter time. The clasp on mine is now broken, sadly. It does still stay put, but it's just like the little mechanism just doesn't really work anymore. I can just pull it open like that. So not something I can travel with anymore, but definitely a lovely, lovely bronzer. I have definitely started to wear down the pattern. This is one I go back to all the time. Yeah, the Butter Bronzer by Physicians Formula. Worth the hype. Lovely formula. It's just as good as a high-end one, but of course Physicians Formula is a little bit more up there in terms of price when it comes to drugstore stuff. So this retails for like $17 or something. So it is a little bit more up there, but it is absolutely lovely. I cannot see myself decluttering this anytime soon. And then not worth the hype. A bronzer that I bought because it was so hyped up was the Anastasia bronzer. I got it in the shade Rosewood because I thought that this could be like the pinky version, the more like, I don't have a lot of more pink tone versions of bronzers because a lot of bronzers would like have more like a red undertone than a pink one. So I was very intrigued with this because it has a softer, pinker, almost more cool toned undertone. And I love it for that. The shade of this is one of the best bronzer shades ever made, in my opinion. So it's worth the hype for that. Why it is not worth the hype is because this formula doesn't work on me. I don't know what happens, but this catches on to patches. It looks really dry and cakey. I know it's already a powder product, so how does that even work? I was never able to apply this in a nice way where it sits nicely on my skin. It just never looked right on my skin, and it was such a shame because this is an expensive product. The packaging is absolutely stunning. The shade of it is bang on, but the formula? So for me, this was not worth the hype for how expensive this is and what it did for me. It was definitely a product that really let me down, I have to say. And then favorites from a favorite brand. One of my favorite brands is Catrice, and they do a bronzer collection every single year in the summertime. And they now also do finally a couple of bronzers in their regular line that work for me. Catrice has been another brand like Essence where just nothing really worked for me. So I was like, I'm going to mention for this prompt in the tag, I'm going to be talking to you about the 3 powder bronzers I currently have by Catrice in my collection. I do have a contour by them as well. I have a couple of cream products, but I already showed all of that to you in my bronzer collection video. So I don't feel like I need to show you the rest. I think I have reviews up for most of these products, by the way, that I'm showing you today. Apart from the Charlotte Tilbury, I think I have reviews up with everything. So I'll make sure to link everything in the description box. Let's start with the regular one. So this is in their regular line. This is the Clean ID mineral bronzer. This is what the packaging looks like. It's sustainable packaging, so it doesn't have a mirror. It has this little elastic, so everything is recyclable. And I think this is also vegan, and it's mostly natural ingredients. It even has an SPF of 15. This is the drugstore version of my The Balm bronzer. It is a little deeper. I find this doesn't work for me as well year round, like the dead of winter. I can't pull this off. Then it's a little bit too deep for me. But this is a lovely, lovely bronzer. It has that more yellow undertone. I don't think this comes in a lot of shades. I have mine in light medium. I think it only comes in 2, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, this Clean ID bronzer by Catrice, one of my favorites. And Catrice is one of my favorite brands. And then last year for their bronzer collection, they came out with the Sungasm collection. They came out with these little pebbles, which I think are always a little bit of a gimmick, but these were lovely. It's a nice glowy bronzer. I just don't really use this. So my next declutter sometime in 2021, I'll probably get rid of these for sure. But I'm a little undecided still on the Sungasm one, because this is another pink toned bronzer, but this is a glowy pink tone bronzer. The other ones I've shown you are all like more matte. And this was really lovely. In the video where I tried this out, I can link it in the eye above in case you're wondering. I put this on as a bit of blush actually, and it worked really well as a bit of blush. So if you're someone who doesn't like blush and you're more of a bronzer person, but you want a bronzer that can sort of do everything, then this Sungasm one by Catrice, not sure what it's called, luminizing bronzer in bronzed euphoria. Cosmetic for Less may still have this out. They sometimes, like, first all of the limited edition sells out and then they get some more stock in and then nobody is interested anymore. So I find that on that website limited edition stuff does stick around for a long time. Yeah, this was a lovely bronzer by Catrice, but I prefer the Clean ID one over this because that's a better undertone for me. This is definitely something, again, I can use in the summertime, but not right now. I think, by the way, if I were to layer these in the summertime, wouldn't that be cool? Like the Urban Decay one and this one, like this for the matte and then this just on the cheeks for a little bit of glow. I think that can be a look. Then, most used, it's the bronzer I'm wearing today. My Becca Sunlit bronzer in Bali Sands. This again comes with a wavy pattern and it's completely worn down. I think this is another one where, like the Balm, I think this is one that I can use up at some point. This is a lovely, lovely bronzer. I'm getting a little bright. Hold on. But yeah, this is a lovely bronzer. As you can see, it blends well. It warms up the face just enough. It just does exactly what I need it to do. So my Becca Bali Sands could have also gone into like a favorite, like most used, favorite, whatever. I put it in most used because I think it definitely by now is my most used bronzer. I sort of go back and forth. The Butter bronzer by Physicians Formula, the Balm, Oliver, this one, my Maybelline City bronzer, which I didn't put in the tag to get today, but it is in my Shop My Stash. That one I absolutely love. The Solar Powder one by Soap & Glory. And I can see myself getting like the Nabla in that like little family tube, like most used. I think I will. Then, most underrated is the Makeup Forever Pro Fusion Bronze Fusion in the shade, I believe it's called 20M. It's rubbed off on the back. And this is a bronzer I don't hear anybody talking about anymore. Like this could have gone into like most used as well. This is another one of my like favorite bronzers. It's a gel to powder kind of texture. And I feel like mine is getting a little bit dry, but then it does swatch okay. So it looks, oh, it feels fine when I swatch it. So, but again, it's more yellow toned. This is the bronzer that made me realize that I had to use yellow tone bronzers, because this is a yellow tone bronzer. It's a little bit lighter than the Balm one or the Becca one, I find. So I love reaching for this in the wintertime. Again, in like January, I may want to go back to this. I'm looking forward to it. This is a really, really stunning bronzer. It's looking absolutely atrocious. This is just looking like, this is well loved in my collection. Like, I go back to this all the time and I never hear people raving about these anymore. These had a moment, I think 5 or 6 years ago. And then, of course, me being me, and not having access to Sephora, and Makeup Forever being a brand that is really hard to get if you don't have access to Sephora. I ended up buying this when I was in Rome. I remember picking it out at a Sephora there. And I've been loving it ever since. It's just a good one. And then I think, and for most nostalgic, I think this goes for a lot of people, my most nostalgic bronzer. So this is not necessarily like best memory, but who remembers these in this packaging? The Too Faced Milk Chocolate Soleil. The Too Faced bronzers were, of course, everywhere a few years ago. Again, these really had their moment. Do you see that I have a dent in there? And that's because I use this as a contour, because like the Anastasia bronzer, this looks really patchy on me, sadly. But I loved it as a contour. And I actually used it in my most recent full face of Too Faced, and a lot of you were commenting on that video saying how lovely the cheek look I did within that video looked, and this was one of the products that I used. I very often use this in conjunction with the Hourglass Radiant Light Ambient Lighting Powder. That's my combo in the summertime. This is contour. That Hourglass powder, it's not even a bronzer, but I use that as an all-over glowy bronzer, and it's a match made in heaven. So this is my most nostalgic. I think if we think bronzers, Too Faced Chocolate Soleil is like one of the OG favorites, like NARS Laguna and this one, I think are quite possibly the ones that most people will remember and are nostalgic for. I got the Milk Chocolate Soleil one because the Chocolate Soleil is just too dark for me. And then last but not least, we're ending on a bit of a negative note with this tag, but the most disappointing bronzer. I still have it. I tried this for my L'Oreal full face. This is the L'Oreal Back to Bronze Universal. No such thing as a universal bronzer shade, L'Oreal, but it's the Gentle Matte Bronzing Powder. Now granted, this wasn't as horrible as I thought it was going to be, but this was a little too orange for me, I'm not gonna lie. I did my full face of L'Oreal, I think in September, so it was okay. Again, I can link it in the eye above in case you would like to see. But this was not one of my favorite products. I bought it specifically for that video, and I know I will be decluttering this straight away. So thank you very much for watching my bronzer collection tag. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. I do want to do, if I haven't done it yet, the highlighter version of this and probably also like a lipstick version, but it will be further down the line in 2021. I already have all my content planned out for January and February, so it's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a while, and maybe an interesting tag pops up along the way. So, but those are just like, it's good to have a couple of video ideas on hand, you know, where you're like, I can do that any point in time. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, I will definitely be doing more of that if you're interested. And stay tuned, because if you would like to see more of like bits of my makeup collection, then that's what I have been doing the past couple of months. So I did my eyeshadow palette collection, I did a highlighter collection, I did my bronzer collection, and I'm doing my blush collection this month as well. So stay tuned for that. Plus I've got extra content coming your way between Christmas and New Year's. So we're just hoping, you know, joyful tidings and all that with this whole like holiday season. I still need to put up my Christmas tree. Hopefully I'll be able to do that sometime this week. And then we'll talk to each other again soon. So to see you in my next video. Bye-bye.